So, we'll look at some, as we go, some of possible cures for these situations, especially with our mothers and our sisters. One of the things that the scholars give advice is, don't shop when you're hungry for Ramadan. Shop at night. Because some people, they go shopping while they're fasting. So they become very creative and they think that they can eat everything. And they shop and they bring food in excess. So the scholars say, shop at night. So, you've got your mental faculties back and you can think straight and you're logical. And you buy enough food and you don't buy things excessively. And this is not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had intended our eating. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat and drink and do not be wasteful or do not exceed in that. So I'd like to look at some historical examples of eating. Perhaps we're not as bad as these examples, but they're humorous. For that sake, we'll look at them. It was said that a wandering man, a man that was traveling, he came to the house of a hermit or someone that was living alone, and the man, the host, he wanted to be nice to him because he's traveling, so he wanted to offer him some food. So he brings him 4 loaves of bread, and he tells him, wait, I'm going to go get you some lentils, some dal, okay? So then when he goes to get the lentils, he comes back and he finds that the man has eaten the 4 loaves of bread. So he leaves the lentils there and he goes to bring him the bread. When he comes back, the man has eaten the lentils. So he goes back to get him more lentils and he comes back, the man has finished the bread. And they say that this goes on around 10 times. So then he asks the man, he says, where's your destination? He asks the traveler. And the man tells him that he is going to Jordan, the area of Jordan, because he heard of a very skillful doctor there that would cure his stomach because he was suffering from the lack of appetite. So then the man asked him, I'll ask you a favor. And the traveler said, sure. He says, if you find that doctor and your stomach is cured, please don't come by this route when you're on your way back home. It is also said that there was a wandering Arab, a Bedouin Arab, and he attended the dining table of a Khalifa, one of the Khulafa. And then they served a roasted goat. And the man started rushing at it and devouring it very greedily, until the Khalifa tells him, you eat of it as if its mother had butted you. So he's telling him, as if the mother of this goat hit you with its horns, you're so mad you're getting revenge in the way you're tearing away at this goat. And then the man quickly responded to the Khalifa, and you have pity on it as if its mother had suckled you. So, another, Al-Shamardal, his name, and he narrates about Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, who was one of the Khulafa. He was the Khalifa right before Umar ibn Abdul Aziz radiallahu anhu. And Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik was known for having a voracious appetite. And if you find books about him, you'll always find a mention of his appetite. So this man Al-Shamardal rahimahullah, he narrates saying that when Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik visited the city of Al-Ta'if, he accompanied with Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He was accompanied with Umar, and he came to me. And he said, oh Shamardal, what have you got for me to eat? And I said, I have a fat goat for you. So he said, he urged me to bring it, and I did. And he said the goat was as if it were butter. It was so soft and tender, the meat. So he says, he sat on eating from it without inviting Umar ibn Abdul Aziz until he devoured all of it except for one leg. And then when he had one leg left, he turned to Umar and he said, come on, O Abu Ja'far. And Umar said that he was fasting. So then Sulaiman ate the leg. And then he looked at me and said, woe to you, Shamardal. Haven't you got anything else? And I answered, I have 6 chickens as if they're the thighs of an ostrich. So he tells, bring them to me. And I brought them to him and he ate all of them. And then he asked me if I had anything else. And I told him that I had porridge that looked like gold flakes. And I brought it to him and he swallowed it all. And then he says that he asked his servant, he called his servant and asked if he had prepared the lunch for them. So this is like almost an appetizer. And the servant answered in the affirmative, and he asked what it was, and the servant said, I have a couple of pots. And then he says, bring them to me just one by one. And he says the servant would bring some pots with bread, and Sulaiman would eat about a third of each one until he finished all of them. And then he wiped his hand and he lay in his bed. And then he says later on the attendants called, and they came in and the table was spread, and he sat down to eat with the people again. So I'm sure we're not all to this level, but these are just humorous examples. To us, these examples are humorous because they eat so much, but perhaps the way we eat so much would be appalling to the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, because we eat so much in comparison to what they're used to. Another incident tells you, and this shows how people used to, how viciously they wanted to eat. A Bedouin Arab ordered his sons to buy some meat for him. So they brought him the meat and they cooked it until it was done. So then he starts to eat of all the meat, and then he was full and he left a little bit of meat and some bones. So now all his sons were looking at him expectantly. They wanted that the rest would go to them. So then he says, now he is a wise man, he wants to see which is the most deserving of his sons to get this meat. So he says, I'll give it to none of you except the one who would eat it properly. So then the first son said, I will chew it until no particle finds home therein. And then he tells him, it is not yours, it's not for you. And then the next son said, I will chew it until it looks as if one whole year has passed since it was eaten. So this is strong intention here. And the father tells him, it's not for you. And then the third son says that I will pulverize it and make its marrow as condiment. And then the father said at last, it's yours. So I'm sure that we don't eat to this degree, but we still eat so much that we need things after eating. We need something to aid in digestion. After a bout of great ingestion, a cup of tea to aid digestion. The action takes place in the non-smoking section, but who's paying the bill is the bigger question. This is how we eat. We need something to help with digestion after that. We need sodas, we need antacids, we need medication for indigestion, we need gas X, we need Beano, all these things to help people with their digestion. Now let's look at how some of the early Muslims used to regard eating. And we find that, first of all, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates that the Prophet ﷺ, he never spoke bad about a food. If he liked it, he would eat it. And if he disliked it, he would leave it. And the thing is, many of us know this hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ never spoke badly about any food. He would leave it if he didn't like it, and if he liked it, he would eat from it. And yet so many people, they're so vocal when it comes to talking about food that they don't like, and when comparing its taste to other things, and insulting the food. And perhaps there might be someone who enjoys the food, and at the same time this is a blessing from Allah Azza wa Jalla, this food. And people who don't have that, so we're sitting and we start to insult, oh, I hate this and I hate that. And one should keep this aside. And perhaps this is one of the reasons, because fathers and husbands complain so much if there's anything wrong with the food, that now our mothers are forced to spend so much time in the kitchen to make sure that the husband doesn't complain about the food. And he shouldn't be complaining anyways. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't eat it, and he stays quiet and he eats from what he likes. And also Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu relates that the Prophet ﷺ said that the meal for 2 people suffices 3, and the meal for 3 suffices 4. This is how it should be. If there's food for 2 people, they've prepared 2, that's enough for them. And the third person comes, it's enough for all 3. And the same for 3 if there's a 4th person. And if you look at it now, the orders that we get when we go to restaurants, they're not for one. Realistically, if we want to eat like the sunnah, many people can eat from that one plate. But if we want to go to the maximum of the sunnah and fill a third, 2 people should eat from one plate. And you go to a kebab place, they give you so much rice and so much meat and so much bread and salad with it, and some of that, the little good stuff, the sauce on the side. And then sometimes I go to these places with brothers, or before when I used to eat meat, and brothers would say, this place, the serving is so small. And there's like a huge piece of bread, it's like huge, like the size of a clown shoe. And the brothers complaining there's not enough food there. And I made a deal with one of my friends in our kebab eating days. I told him, let's just get one plate and we'll eat it together. And we did it the first time, and the second time he said, get your own plate. I need my own plate. We eat so much and we're used to that. So let's look at Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. He used to, for a while, when Medina was struck with famine, he swore that he will eat nothing but oil and bread. So he doesn't want to be the greedy Khalifa who's eating roasted goats while everyone else is starving. So he said he's not going to eat anything but bread and oil until the starvation is lifted or the famine is lifted. So he eats just bread and oil. And it is said from the people who would be at his gathering that they would be sitting with him and his stomach would rumble. And then he would speak to his stomach and he would tell it, you have nothing with us except for bread and oil. Can you imagine, especially someone in a place of power, living on something such as bread and oil? And as I say many times, if we ever tried this, 3 days we're going to start to bite our brothers and bite our sisters because we need meat. So one day, and the bread, as you know back then, they would get like the wheat or the